And with me today is Martha Delaney. She is the Senior Manager of Business Development with New Ion. Welcome, Martha.
Thanks so much, Laura.
Martha, can you tell me just a little bit about yourself before we get into our conversation?
Sure. I have spent the majority of my career going back and forth between IT and construction. And so building has been a big part of life for me, and I've always been fascinated by it. And growing up in DC, or outside DC, actually in Maryland, don't want to misrepresent, but I was born in DC and raised in Maryland, and just watched that whole area boom. And it was just fascinating to me. Career, before the age of 35, I was vice president of an organization that I built. And so, my partners felt that leaving, sort of the building of the business to me was the best thing. And having worked with my partners in the past, we were able to just kind of slide right into, to the operations of it. And so titles were, in the 90s, it was a lot of startups. And so, that's really where I cut my teeth in being a business owner.
And I can't imagine all the lessons that you learned through those experiences, especially at a young age at 35.
It was an interesting time. I think IT was so young too, and being on the forefront of a lot of the wave of IT. I was able to work with the Fabulous Four in technology and help them build education curriculums. And so IT has been something that will always be a part of my career. And New Ion has been a great part of being able to build my passion for building and my propensity and understanding of IT. And being able to bring that to the marketplace and provide a solution for customers is really what I was looking for when I joined this team.
That's really interesting. How have you seen things progress? So IT certainly in the 80s and 90s was highly male dominated, and it's definitely diversifying now. What did you see change?
Yay. It's like I've waited so long for this. And anytime anybody says, women are finally, really forging ahead in leadership in whether it be construction or IT, is just, it makes me want to jump up and down. I have worked really hard in both industries to be able to be a role model, not just as a woman, but as a subject matter expert in the field, and bringing the in-depth expertise that's needed, regarding high purity water systems, or whether you're helping an enterprise organization, implement EHR systems. The thing that remains consistent is that you are providing something to the customer that they cannot provide themselves. Absolutely. Knowledge is conveyed in so many different ways these days, and particularly in the past 3 years, we've seen it change from, highly collaborative in-person interaction to a lot of virtual and phone conversations that we don't actually meet our customers sometimes. I think we are going to come through this with a hybrid version of that, but I think the value of technology in construction is a time saver and allows us to, deliver projects more quickly. And it allows that subject matter expert to convey information in a way that we hadn't relied upon before. And so women in construction, men in construction, we are all going to be a hybrid of, what was solely a site-driven collaboration. I think that allows women in construction to still rely upon technology to meet with their customer or to convey the information, via email or a set of plans. So, and I think that's true cross-gender.
What do you say? What do you think when you hear people say that um, that there's no gender gap?
Let's just say that I have a very well-honed argument on that point in general. Hopefully that gender gap is closing, but I do see it every day, and I see it in a way that I really believe that a lot of people don't even realize that that gap exists. And so I think it's ingrained in our business practices and in our culture, and it's going to take a while to change those. But I think the change has become way more upfront and in your face than it has been in the past. There was a lot of resolution to conflict that I had to handle myself. Whereas now I think there's a lot of support. And I think that the one thing that has changed is that you can't be unaware of it now. And if you fall into, a misstep or, that you're immediately corrected. And I think that the argument is waning. And hopefully the practices are as well.
So what do you see? What do you see as having been the drivers of the change that we have experienced so far? You mentioned a few, but I'm sure there are more.
So in which aspect? Emerging after COVID or really kind of from the beginning?
Well, I think kind of from the beginning, and I'm asking this because change sneaks up on us a lot.
Yes.
And then it's kind of like that early adopter, chart and all of that. And sometimes it does sneak up on us, and then we're like, wait, what caused it to sneak up on us, and what can we take advantage of? And because it's worked, we just didn't notice that it was working. And like, if we do that thing with more purpose and on purpose more, we could probably push this to the next level pretty quickly if we were just aware of it. So, I mean, you've seen things change and experienced the change. So what do you think have been some of those sneaky drivers that we should be paying attention to in ways that we haven't really been aware of?
That's a great question, because, there's so many facets to it. And the one thing that I can say is that early on, I had to work harder and I had to be a lot more confident than a lot of my male coworkers. I was the only woman in a room for about 30 years, 25, 20. But I started young. I started really young in construction. It was while I was in college. And so when I got that experience on the job site, and as you were saying, I didn't live on the job site the way some of the site workers did, but I was in and out of a commercial residential construction building prior to closing and in groundbreaking. I was able to see things built from the ground up, and we're talking 22-story high rises. So I was, I guess I didn't know that I shouldn't be there. And that was one of the things that I never adhered to, was the mores or the norms that were kind of pushed upon women. And so I think as we go forward in this, and I was a little bit rebellious growing up, but I don't think that I was, I was still doing what I needed to do. I wasn't rebellious against the entire system. I was rebellious against the way that I did things, and therefore enabled the way others around me were able to move forward. I had a great mentor in construction very early on. And she was a woman that started in real estate and really got into building residential high rises. And she was able to, she just kind of provided me with a set of guidelines, with just going onto a job site and making people listen. And I think that that has carried over into IT. I had to be way more knowledgeable. I had to know my stuff. People were going to test me. I was 23 years old, 5'10", blonde hair. You couldn't miss me on the job site, hard hat or not. But those people that really tried to test me, I really wanted to step up and put them in their place. And instead of respecting the title, they wanted to prove me wrong. And just about every time, there were one or two times when I wasn't the expert on, that topic, but I was still on the job site. And so I really felt like I had to have a level of knowledge about building that was so encompassing. And I'm a person that is a lifelong learner. I love to learn. I love to learn new things. And I think that served me really well, both in IT and building. And so being able to just have the confidence to walk into a room full of, people who wanted to prove me wrong, and to still remain standing upright and, prove them wrong. And that was always a really good feeling, to just be able to hold my own and really kind of shine as the expert in whatever, the topic was. Because I wouldn't put myself in a situation where I wasn't.
There's a lot to controlling the environment, right?
Yeah.
Almost analogous to the power of the pen, right?
Yes.
The person who writes the notes controls the meeting.
Right. And, I did the university speaking circuit for about 5 years. And, even in IT, talking to a lot of men who were becoming, systems engineers at the time, or, database engineers, there was a lot of information to convey.
Especially, well, not especially then, there's always a lot of information to convey. It's just kind of different information with different audiences and resonating with that audience. Actually, on that topic, the title of what you're speaking to is Procuring for Success: How E-Procurement Can Drive Project Cost Reduction and ESG Best Practices. That's a mouthful right
It's
there.
a mouthful.
Did you know that was how it was titled?
I knew that was the topic. I'm not sure it was articulated that way to me.
Okay, well, that's what it is now. What is so resonating with your audience? What is it that you really hope that people will walk away with? Like those one or two things that they can, because the human brain can only hold, I think it's up to 3 items. So we might discuss a dozen. I know, right? That was pre-long COVID.
Yes.
But so what is it that you hope, what are you excited about that you want people to walk away with in their pocket that they can take action on after?
One of the exciting things about speaking to women who build in general is that there are women who build, and so that's an indication of the ever evolving nature of life in general. But business has changed so much in the past, 15, 20 years anyway. Being used to being the only woman in the room, it's it's fascinating to watch women in the room now. And so I think what I'd like to convey is that no matter what is happening, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you've worked with women in construction in the past, we all need to evolve, and we all need mentors for that. Change is not easy for a lot of people, and having the compassion to understand that and to teach that as we all move forward in life. One of the things that I have been thoughtful about in my career is teaching, education. Knowledge is power. And no matter who you are, but as women influence leadership more, I think men need to stop, slow down a little bit, listen, and be cognizant of how that can enhance business. How, we're talking about e-commerce. E-commerce is allowing us to deliver projects in a more timely manner. We can hop on a Teams call and have a meeting. We don't have to meet down on the job site. And that's valuable to me because I'm sometimes working on 15 to 20 projects that we're proposing on top of what we are installing. And so different phases of that construction piece doesn't need to slow down for us to show up. And so, getting proposals out, that technology to be able to develop proposals is invaluable. And we can share that in a collaborative environment, whether it's Teams or, Salesforce, whatever the tool is, it's a resource that we can now capture and really drive the project. Project management software is another great example. And so I just really think that technology has made a mark in building, and that, foothold was really solidified over the past 3 to 5 years.
Yes, it was. And I think that one of the benefits of COVID was that it really propelled the universe into embracing something that people were really resisting.
Yes.
And, we could have been doing more and more remote communication. We could have been doing all of those things a lot more. And people, we're really fighting that. Like, no, production equals being in office. Production equals this, without any kind of and statement there. It was like very black and white, this or that, and that's it. And I mean, there's always good in everything, right? And I think that I really appreciate that the pandemic really kicked us all in our collective butts and made
Yes.
us think outside of the box, made us challenge what 2 days before we were like, no, absolutely not.
And if you look at the way that affected our healthcare, we can convey that into many other aspects, such as construction. And in my world, the two collide. I'm in hospitals all the time in central sterile departments and, lab work. We provide water softeners for whole buildings or kitchens, or, there's a level of technology and construction that have collided and has been enhanced by, the collaboration virtually.
Yes, yes, it has. And, in my past lives, actually, I'm doing some of it now too. I forget what I'm doing,
It's
but,
fuzzy.
rolling out new software, new systems, new ways of doing things has been traditionally very, very difficult, right? Normal resistance to change. We think it's going to be easy, and that there's an easy button that exists, which is a myth. There's no such thing as an easy button. But
It's always changing, isn't it? That's the
yeah, it
thing.
is.
You gotta adapt.
It's true. And I mean, we had in construction specifically, there was always this idea, or in my experience, there was always this idea, this bias that would say that the field is not going to accept new technology, like,
Yes.
these things. And no matter what you give them, whether it's an iPad or this or that, even the cool touch planning boards where, you see people
Yes.
going like this, and the field is so cool, like, awesome. But now, and that's another thing I appreciate with COVID is had to, and so now we've opened up our minds collectively that, hey, it's not us in the office versus them in the field, it's we together more, because you can't make those kinds of assumptions that people are not going to embrace something new, as long as it's done correctly, right? Don't add burden, subtract burden.
I was just going to say that. Yep. As long as it's used properly, because there's a lot of rapport building that we're missing by not meeting in person. And some of that can be gained, through a virtual, but it's much easier in person. And I still pick up the phone a lot and, try and make that connection to people, because a phone call or a virtual meeting is so much quicker and you get so much more done than via email. We have the ability to put email off or not be in front of our computers or our phones. And that's the other thing, we have to be accessible. And part of that accessibility is, to kind of working with people in a way that is personal. We still do business with people.
Yes, yes. I always say that people build buildings.
Yes.
The software doesn't.
That's a really good point.
They're just
I
the
like that.
backhoe. The people are the ones building the building, just in case we all forgot that.
That's it. And I think that's a really good point, because people still do business with people too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. People
Yeah.
build things.
That's right.
That's great. See,
Yeah,
I love
very,
doing
very.
that. I love connecting people. I think it's one of the most valuable things that you can give back, is the ability to connect people and the ability to introduce somebody so that they can have a connection starting out.
It's women who build and
Women
talking about
people.
those things, but there's this idea.
But we have this presence, and we are women who build. And so I think men should be there, because as women do gain a influence in leadership, in building, whether it's construction or management or, whatever, renovation, as women, as numbers grow, men are going to be, way more understanding and way more accepting if they know how that happens. And if they are privy to the influences that change, that make that change. And so I think it's vital for everybody to come together and be able to not only understand the change, but understand how women can enhance building, how women can enhance business, whether it's construction, IT, building, manufacturing. there is so much to be gained by different perspectives. We learn so much, we take it in, we internalize, we make it our own, and then we go back in the field and we use it. And so, you know, I have a level of knowledge and expertise that I would love to impart to others. It makes our journeys not only easier, but way more interesting.
Yes, and so what I'm hearing from you is that, you know, I said that that this conference is particularly friendly, right? So I
Yeah.
think that we should be telling everyone who's planning on attending that they should find you, grab your hand, introduce themselves, and not be afraid of
Yes.
approaching you at this conference.
No, I think it's very important to be approachable. I think it's very important to want to be able to help each other. And if the one thing that I bring to each of my clients is I want to provide a solution. And so, you know, one of the things that was instilled in me at a very young age, both of my parents felt that it was valuable to know each other's story. And so turn to each other, shake each other's hands and say, hey, you know, what have you got? Or here's something that might help you. I'm always trying to make people aware of the fact that I'm willing to give as well as take. And so in a meeting, you know, if I'm meeting a colleague on project status, the intel is great, but I also want to give back. And so learning is a two-way street. And if I have something that is valuable, I'd love to share it.
That's so wonderful.